Right, I'm going to show you how to adjust the valves now. So with checking them, I've already taken off the cam cover, so you can see the video for that if you need to know how to do that. And what you need to take off next is the crank cover. You've got 8mm bolts. Just loosen them off evenly, then pull the cover off. There's two longer screws, one on the top there, one on the left hand side, bottom hole. You might need to give it a bit of a tap to get the cover off. Let's use a soft mallet. You can see the gasket tore there, taking it off. You get a new gasket in the kit anyway. And there's two dowels in the case, one at the top, and one came off with the cover. And watch that dowel there, keeping the chain tensioner in. Next you want a 24mm socket to go on this nut here. You want to turn the engine clockwise. And what you want to see where there's a little groove there, you'll see a dot on the sprocket behind. Just keep turning until you see that. That's it. Right. So I don't know if you can see in there. You can see the line going down and a slight punch mark dot on the sprocket behind. Then at the top where the cams are, see the two lines with the number 8 next to them. You want those two facing each other inwards. Right, so now to take off the cam chain tensioner, you're going to want a wedge to put in behind the chain guide there. It doesn't need to be really tight, just to take the pressure of the tensioner. Then the 8mm socket again, take the two tensioner bolts out, just bring them out evenly. So with the two screws out, you want to turn it to the left slightly so you can pull it out, avoiding the frame. That's the tensioner. You've got a gasket on the bottom and an O-ring. You get those two replacement parts in the kit. Right, so now to take off the ladder plate. There's 16 screws keeping it on. You want to take those off in sequence too. Start on the left hand side with the two outside ones. So it's 1, 2, 2 inside ones, 3, 4. Opposite side. It's 5, 6, 7, 8. And the middle left, 9, 10, 11, 12. And the last ones, 13, 14, 15, 16. So you want to take those off evenly again. So just crack them all off first. and just keep loosening off evenly. You can just leave the screws in the plate, you can still get it off. So if all the screws loosened off, just give it a wiggle. Then you can slide it out to the right over the chain. Right, so you've got no tension on the chain now. Just pick up the camshaft, hook it off the chain. That's the exhaust one removed. You don't need to take them both out. If you do, just same again, lift the chain off. There's a screw going through the case there with the chain rest on, so you can't drop it down at the engine. Got to keep these separate because they are different for the intake and the exhaust. So then under the cams you've got the buckets, and the shims are under the buckets. So if you've got your measurements, you know which ones are out. Just use a little magnetic stick on the bucket, it'll pull it out, and the shim will stay in the bucket. That's it there. Now these are all different sizes, and it does say the size of it on the shim. So that's a 235, which is 2.35 millimeters. So you get a bigger or smaller shim, whatever your clearance needs to be. So putting it back in, you can see the little circle in the middle, that's where the shim sits. Make sure it sits in there properly. Get your bucket, put it back on top. Do that for all the shims that need adjusting. And you can put your cams back in. One thing I forgot to mention was the 3 O-rings that sit over the spark plug holes. You want to replace those. They aren't actually included in the kit, you need to buy them separately. Just lubricate them a bit of clean engine oil and sit them back in the groove. Right, so it's time to put everything back together. You want to start off with the exhaust cams. Remember to put the number 8 pointing inwards for this one. And what you want to do is you want to have the chain tight, coming over this way. Make sure the 8 is lined up. You can take your inlet cam, hook the chain over, remember to have the chain tight there. You should have the 8s facing each other. The loose part should be on the left here. And take your wedge again put it in there somewhere, keeping it tight. Slide the ladder plate back in from the right, watching the screws. And just give everything a wiggle so it all lines up and sits down on the cams. Right, so tightening them is basically the backwards order that you took them off. So the inner right hand side, you want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And just tighten them all down by hand first. It's not that important about the order right now because you're not tightening them. Once with them all snug down, you want to take your torque wrench in the same sequence. Let's tighten them all down to 5 Newton meters. Then after that, you want to tighten them all again to 10 Newton meters. Right, so with the ladder plate all torqued down, I've still got the wedge in there. Take your reset chain tensioner, let's tip it to the left so get it in past the frame. Push that in, it'll pop, click into place. Let's tighten the screws in. You want to torque those to 9 Newton meters. You want to take a 24mm socket again for the nut on the crank. Hold the chain guide, take the tensioner out. When you turn it over, it'll make the clip release and push the tensioner out. Just hold it, right, turn it. And that's it. Just need some light pressure on it so it can still move and release the clip. You want to turn the engine over at least 4 times. Just to make sure no pistons are hitting the valves. It means it's jumped a tooth. Just keep turning it. So then after at least 4 turns, I'm going to turn it to top dead center again. The dot lined up with the groove there, and the cams facing the 8 next to each other. If you've got all that done, that's basically the job done. So I'm going to put the new gasket on. I have cleaned the surfaces first, getting the old gasket off. Just line it up with the dowels. You've got the two longer screws, one at the top, one at the bottom left. And just tighten all the screws in evenly. I think you torque those to 9 Newton meters. Put the cam cover back on, I showed you in the valve check video. And I will say when you first start the engine, it's going to rattle a lot until it gets the oil in the tensioner. Just like a couple of seconds, so don't worry about that, it'll go straight away. And that's your valves adjusted.